Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many people have joined this session today. It's Andrew here from careermap.co.uk, and welcome to our latest live webinar for today. Today we're joined by the team from Bentley. The guys will be talking today about their exciting apprenticeship opportunities. But before we begin, if you look to the right of the presentation screen, you'll see a chat facility. And we are live, so we encourage you to ask as many questions at any time. Feel free to make any comments and ask questions about the presentation, but there will be time at the end for a full Q&A session. So guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Before we begin the presentation, could you just introduce yourselves and give a bit of an overview of your roles at Bentley?
Thank you, Andrew. If I can just ask the Bentley team just to join us quickly before we start. So we'll just all introduce ourselves. Thank you everyone for joining today. It's great to see so many online. What we're going to do is introduce who we are, and then we'll move into some presentation slides, bit of a discussion about what we all do and the opportunities in all our departments, and then we'll go for a big Q&A at the end where you'll get a chance to ask all your questions. So I'm Tom Russell, I'm the Future Talent Lead at Bentley, so I manage all the apprenticeship programs. I work closely with all the recruiting managers and the departments to make sure that the apprenticeships we have are the right ones for the business, delivering the right skills into the right areas at the right time. Cheryl, can I ask you to go first?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Percival and I'm a Senior Supplier Quality Engineer, and I'm currently working in supplier quality.
Thanks, Rich.
Hi, my name is Rich Whittle. I'm the manager of the Mulliner Workshop. Very exciting place to work. We're currently working on the Blower Series cars and the Bacalar cars and many other bespoke vehicles that we do for Bentley cars.
Should probably point out that Rich is on our COVID secure site at the moment. He just doesn't like sitting around the house in a mask. And Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam Smith. I'm an engineering degree apprentice working in after-sales service operations.
Well, thank you very much. And just to point out as well, we unfortunately don't have our engineering apprentice on with us today, who's unfortunately ill, but we'll make sure that we cover off all the engineering department apprenticeships we have as well as we move through the presentation. So Bentley staff, we'll turn our videos and mics off again. I'm going to show you a short video to start, which shows you a little bit for those that haven't seen it in the inside of our factory. And then I'll come back on and take you through a few slides about our company and our opportunities. Okay, so thanks again for joining us today for this engineering opportunities webinar. And hopefully that gives you a flavour of what our site looks like and the process that our products go through to become really amazing vehicles at the end of the production process. You've met those that are on the call already, and we'll come back to have a discussion with our colleagues at the end of these few slides, just to introduce you to the company and what we do. So our factory is located in Crewe, Cheshire. We have all functions on that one site, and that is one of the beauties about the company, in that you can see every part of that production process from start to finish, from design all the way through to engineering, and then production, and then after sales located on one site. And of course, we also have our fantastic Mulliner team that operate out of that site as well. And we produce Continental, Fine Spur and Bentayga and the derivatives thereof, and our special editions and bespoke products, and our Coach Built and Classic on the one site in Crewe. Within the factory itself, we have a number of different technical trade areas as well as the main assembly, and our engineering apprenticeships will interact with those areas in different ways, and depending on which of the departments, either in after sales, quality, engineering or Mulliner, that they're based in. So highly skilled trades at Bentley meet digital innovation, and we are a company that really is transforming to meet the needs of the future of automotive. But we also have a long history of apprenticeships, which really makes our programs that they're award-winning, and the amount of support that an apprentice gets at Bentley is second to none, because of the amount of apprentices that we now have and graduates, in fact, that we now have working in support, peer and management positions. So that support is never far away when you're an apprentice at Bentley. We are a surprisingly sustainable company. It's worth mentioning that there's some surprising things on our site. So we have a colony of bees at the back of our car park, and a number of living wall features as well, which enable us to sort of keep that ecosystem going on site. You'll see the top right there, there's a picture of the roofs of our site and our car park. So we produce approximately 80% of our electricity through those solar panels per site. And we are now a carbon neutral certified company as of last year, the first automotive factory in the UK to get that mark. And we're now looking at our supply chain as well, the bottom right there. So looking at how we can reduce CO2 emissions with biofuels through our suppliers and our supply chain logistics. Sustainability for us is a huge thing. It's really important for us and our customers, and a lot of activities that you will get involved in on the apprenticeship scheme support our corporate social responsibility and support our sustainable luxury and our Be Sustainable campaign that aims to improve the lives and improve our carbon neutral certification. So the engineering apprenticeship itself, two slightly different things on offer. So the majority of our vacancies this year in after sales, the engineering department and the quality department are degree engineer apprenticeships, but we also have one advanced apprenticeship which will be available in our Mulliner department, and Rich will tell us a bit more about that one specifically as we get into the discussion. So it's either a full BEng, and that will be in the different flavour or the different subject that is appropriate to the department, or it will be a level 3 BTEC MVQ type arrangement focusing on engineering technician skills. There's then one-to-one coaching support from the training provider selected, and that's normally done through meetings on a 4 to 8 weekly basis, but that gives you an extra bit of technical input to develop the skills on the job, taking into account what you've learned in the classroom or at the university. You portfolio build whilst learning the processes in production and in engineering. So it means that you get the opportunity to take the technical learning that you're doing at university or at college and apply that directly into a role, which is really important for you to build and apply the knowledge, not just learn it. There's wraparound support available, so you often allocated a mentor, you'll have a sponsored manager to work with, and a really good peer network at Bentley. We'll have over 150 apprentices on programme by the time that our September intake joins, and add to that 40 undergraduate trainees and 20 graduates. There's over 200 trainees on programme at Bentley at any one time, so it's a fantastic peer network to call on for support when you need it. The training's fully funded. So Bentley, through our apprenticeship levy, will fund all the training, and it is a full-time contract. So for these apprenticeships, this is a 4-year full-time contract with the company on a fixed-term basis. But as we get to the end of that contract, we really aim to keep all the performers and everyone that meets the standard in the business on permanent contracts. It's a chance to learn whilst you earn, especially for the degree apprenticeships. Think of those tuition fees that actually are funded through the apprenticeship levy, and you're earning the salary, but then you also get 4 years of amazing industry experience at the same time, which sets you up it's an amazing platform for a career when you get to the end of that degree apprenticeship. A degree, 4 years experience, and hopefully a permanent role in the company. And it is an extraordinary place to work. Some of the accreditations we have on that slide there: top employer for the 10th year running, top 100 apprenticeship employers, the only automotive manufacturing company to be in there. We work closely with the BAME Apprenticeship Alliance and the UK Automotive 30% Club on our gender equality. And also we've recently won a Princess Royal Training Award and a School Leaver Award in 2020 as a top automotive company. We were actually the top UK apprenticeship employer back in 2018 at those awards. So what does the application process look like, and where are the apprenticeships in 2021? So it's quite a simple process. The vacancies are currently live on bentleycareers.com, the website. Once applied, the recruitment team will go through a bit of a sift of those, make sure that people who have met the entry criteria for the apprenticeships. Then there's an assessment centre. Then the managers will look at the CVs and they will call people forward to assessment centre. So we would hope that those that are applying hear back in the first week of March, there or thereabouts, after the managers have done that sift. And you'll hear back either way, so you always get a response from us through our system. And once that assessment centre has taken place, likely to be virtual at the moment, but you will hear more about that if we're to get in touch to call you forward for one, and that leads then to an offer. Now we appreciate then there is a gap between offer and onboarding in September, and my team aims to make sure that we bridge that gap by keeping in touch and making sure that you're fully prepared for joining us in the September. Clearly, there are also, for some people, results to get in between them, and obviously we'll work quite closely this year, especially on those as those results come through in whichever way they come this year. We do appreciate it's a bit of a change in a movable beast this year with what's happening with people's results coming through. So we aim to be as flexible as possible with that. The apprenticeships available, our 3 departments, engineering, quality and aftersales, will be looking at slightly different types of engineering degree. So if you're interested in the electrical or the system side, it's maybe engineering aftersales you want to be considering, or more the mechanical side, potentially the quality area to be looking at. And then, as we said, for Mulliner, it's a slightly different apprenticeship, which can be applied for post 16 with appropriate GCSEs or BTEC level 2, which will take you through a level 3 qualification. And just to point out what our vacancy looks like, that's where you will find the vacancy. We're going to update this so it has the Mulliner vacancy at the bottom there as well. But what's really key is that you, when you apply for this, we expect you to write a cover letter and to make it really clear on that cover letter which are the 4 areas you're interested in working in. Perfect. Can I ask the team to turn back on, please? Enough of me talking. Fantastic. So I'm sure there's some questions dropping into the chat box as we go, and we'll answer them when we get to the end of this little section now. We might even cover some of those as we go through. So I'm going to leave that slide up so you know who we are. And I'm just going to ask our team a few questions now, just to explain a bit more about their departments and what they do. So Rich, can I come to you first? Do you want to give us an overview of what Mulliner does as a department for the business?
Mulliner is a bespoke area, so we do varied work from a lot of cars that go through a thing called the personal commissioning guide. So if a customer wants a Bentley that's a little bit different, it can be built with our help down the line. We then move into limited editions, so the rose gold Panglossian edition cars have been through the workshop. We do carbon body kits, but we're also now starting the first cars for the customer blower vehicles. So the recreation of the I always forget the year, 1930s blower. We're building from the ground up as brand new cars for some very lucky customers. And we're also working now on the Bacalar project for the open top 2-door sports car that we're doing for some other very lucky customers. We have an on-site electrical area, sheet metal area, wood shop. We do as much of the skilled work inside here as we can, so it's a very hands-on skilled job, learning lots of really interesting things. It's a great place to work with quite a small team, so you get a lot of attention and training, hands-on work. and it is a fantastic place to work, I must say. I've been working in Mulliner now for 25 plus years, and it's a really great place to work.
And it's quite a tradition. There's apprentices. We've just had quite a few apprentices come through the Mulliner department. And what sort of things have they been doing? And what do you expect this new apprentice to be doing for you?
The guys that have just come through have done exactly all that. They've done sheet metal. They've worked in the wood shop. So Jack, to use Jack as an example, he's now working on the blower project. He's helping build the chassis for the car, ready to drop the frame on and the engine. So he's deeply involved in that, putting the chassis together with the guys. We've just taken it off the jig. Car number 1 has been dropped on its wheels now. Dominic is working on the Bacalar project. The engineering car's come back from testing, and we're doing some learning on that car. 2 of the other guys are fitting carbon body kits. But the good thing about Mulliner is you're not on the same job all the time. You could be working 1 minute on the blower, the next minute you could be working on the Panglossians. We also have VVIP cars for very, very special customers, which I can't sadly discuss. I'd love to, but I can't. So yeah, the work in here can vary from day to day. That's why you need to be a technician at the end after your training, because you could literally be dropped on anything and you're expected to do a good job, perform well, and do a good quality job.
Bro, thanks very much, Rich. We'll come back. I've got a question about how you interact with the rest of the business, but we'll come back to that in a sec. I want to go over to Cheryl and quality. So let's give us an overview of what the quality department does, firstly, within the business.
So quality of an overall department gets involved in quite a lot of things with the car. So, for example, we have a lab on site and they do testing, and they also help us with suppliers to develop what testing they have to do. So we do test parts to make sure they meet some legal and also requirements set by Volkswagen. We have other areas like metrology, where they look at parts on what is like, we call it a cube, and it's like a fake car essentially. And they look at the gaps and just make sure that the parts fix on there correctly and to specification. We have other areas where they audit other parts of the business to make sure we're all running to what process we should be doing. And the area I work in is supplier quality, and our role is quite varied, and we can go from anywhere from helping purchasing choose suppliers to working with suppliers to make good parts and put them on the car, to going on the line and solving any problems and putting improvements in place. So supplier quality is a really varied department what I work on at the moment, and it's really good for touching different parts of the project, and you get to work with a lot of departments at Bentley.
When we talk about on the line, we're talking about in the production facility.
Yeah, sorry, in the production.
I just realised that we all talk about it every day, but it might not be the terminology for some people listening. And why is an engineering degree important, Cheryl, in the quality department? Because sometimes people, I don't think, make that connection when starting off a career.
Well, especially in the department I work in, it's important because when you're working with suppliers, everything you're doing is technical. So to have that mechanical engineering background gives you the experience and also the techniques to help that supplier. So you learn about problem solving, you learn about what the customers need, so you understand about requirements. Also, if you're on the production line at the supplier or at Bentley, having that mechanical background can help you understand problems and issues and feed that back to the supplier. So I would say it's important because the meetings and workshops and tasks I deal with, you do have to have that technical background to understand what people are talking about.
Bro, thank you very much. And what about yourself and you becoming a senior engineer? What's your journey to get into your position at Bentley?
Well, actually, I did an apprenticeship at another company where I qualified, did a technical apprenticeship, so very similar to what you're talking about. And then I went on to do a part-time degree. And like I say, that background of being a bit hands-on with the apprenticeship, but also having that academic background made me fit in very well for a senior supplier quality engineer's role. As I say, it gives you that, you've seen processes in real life. You've also got the background with the degree and the academic side, and it makes you quite a well-rounded person doing an apprenticeship in that way. And I would say that's what's an attractive characteristic, really, to become a senior engineer.
I think that's a really good point you mentioned about that rounded view. And as Sam, I'll come on to you in a second. I'm sure you'll be able to talk about this. But what we really encourage our apprentices and graduates at Bentley to do is to make sure they get a rounded view of the business. I know, Rich, with some of your apprentices, you've made sure they've got experience of the production line in the main build, and we really encourage everyone to do placements around the business where we can facilitate that as part of the program, and it links with the degree. Thanks, Cheryl. And Sam. So after sales, again, maybe an area where people see engineering degree apprenticeships and think in engineering. What does after sales do for the business, and how does the engineering link to it?
Yeah, so we've discussed the production line, and you made the point there, Tom, about that being something that we talk about every day. Well, once the car leaves the production line, that's what kind of when it comes into our remit, if you like. And in my department, which is the service operations, as it's called, we have the technical responsibility for those cars once they've left the production line. So that's where the link to engineering really comes in. And that's in two forms within our department. One's a side which is offering technical information for our retailer network. So these are the places around the world, 250 odd, 260 odd sites where you can buy a Bentley or have a Bentley serviced. Part of the business, part of our department is offering the information for them to be able to look after those cars properly. And the side that I work on more closely is the side which is dealing with customer issues, customer problems, resolving those, but also looking for any trends in the quality and then feeding that back into the business. So that's a really strong engineering link where you're having to analyze the issue, solve the issue at the first instance, and be able to improve the customer experience with the product, but also be able to feed that back into the business and work to find a solution.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And what have you, as an apprentice, what have you done over your four years? Which parts of the business have you experienced?
Well, I'm maybe a bad example for moving all around the business, because I know a lot of apprentices do. But I think the thing is with after sales is you naturally deal with so many different parts of the business anyway. But it's not necessarily a bad thing to not do that. Just to touch on some other apprentice stories that I know, you're absolutely right, Tom. Placements around the business are a really key part of the apprenticeship. As part of my role, I work really closely with the engineering department, with quality, with production as well. But we also have the extra side of our stakeholders, which are effectively our customers, which is our regional teams around the world. It's a department after sales that looks, like I say, every single part of the world. We start our morning dealing with Asia Pacific, Japan, China, and end it dealing with America. So that's another part of that. So yeah, with after sales, you deal with every aspect of the business, and doing placements as well is another way that you'll get first-hand knowledge of that.
Brill, thank you very much. And talking about interacting with different parts of the business, Rich, I said I'd come back to you. How does Mulliner interact with the rest of the business then? And will an apprentice, I don't think an apprentice will be completely within the Mulliner department, but they'll get a chance to see some of the rest of the business as well.
Yeah, we always, when they first come into Mulliner, we do a round robin, so they do a base understanding of each area: electrical, sheet metal, etc., and coach building. And then what I basically insist that whoever they are, they go out, they work down the production line for a while, so they understand how the cars go together, how the production line works, the thinking behind the build sequencing and things like that. And then depending on the trade, I'll send them to various departments. So if, for instance, they're learning trim, they'll go to trim development, do some development there. Engineering workshops. If you're doing electrical, you go to the CEF room, which is electrical testing and integration. You also do loom work on the bench here. So yeah, depending on what trade the person's heading down, they'll be put around the factory to suit that.
I think that's really interesting. You mentioned the CEF room as well. So going back to our engineering apprenticeships as well. So just making it clear again that we've got vacancies in Mulliner, quality and after sales, but also engineering. And they'll be looking at departments just like electrical, like the chassis department, and like our body and trim department. Those are the three areas we're looking at putting those engineers into in our engineering department. But they will be focused on electrical and systems engineering. Sam, that's your pathway you've taken, isn't it? Is it electrical degree that you've been doing?
Correct, yeah.
And how have you found, what sort of things do you learn on the electrical side of things?
All sorts, really. And it's, I think one of the things that it maybe surprised me, maybe that shows a little bit of cynicism on my part. It really surprised me how closely a lot of what you do in the path to the degree is so reflective in what you do in the workplace as well. I pick one example, which is something called embedded systems, which is any device which has a piece of software code in it which does things. That's about the simplest way I can put that. And that's what we deal with on a car on an everyday basis. The car, effectively these days, modern vehicles are a load of these embedded systems wired together, and having that knowledge. Although I probably can't go in and code one of these things, but I can certainly understand how they work and how they interact with each other. And that's only something that I've got through the degree, and it's very much benefited what I've done on a day-to-day basis.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And Terrell, just going back again, just to mention it, mechanically focused in quality. Is there any of the key skills that you'd say are important in that pathway that will really affect someone's ability as a quality engineer?
Other than the technical knowledge, one thing as well to bear in mind with especially a supply quality role is the amount of suppliers and different people you come into contact with. So actual communication and problem solving and continuous improvement are quite good aspects to have in a senior supply in a quality engineer, I should say. Sorry. So I was talking to Beth, who's one of our apprentices, and one of the things she did in her first year was shadowing people on supplier visits. So having that experience helps you out. And it's not just with the suppliers, but also when you're talking to people internally at Bentley, having that communication is really key as well as the mechanical background.
That's great. I think that's something we try to do with our wider program as well, is bring apprentices together and then give you the opportunity to go and develop those skills, be it through running a project for corporate social responsibility or running maybe an attraction activity with a university or a school. That sort of thing gives our apprentices the ability to lead projects, project manage, lead other apprentices, which I think is really, really key as well. One final question before we move on to Q&A, because I've noticed there's quite a few questions being thrown into the chat, which is great. So let's focus on answering what people have got to ask. Sam, I'm going to start with you as the newest of the four of us on the call to Bentley. What's the best thing about working at Bentley?
I was dreading you were going to ask that question. I have thought about this, and I think it's just, there are so many things, but I think one of the main things is just the prestige of the brand that you're working for, and that naturally brings your motivation on a day-to-day basis. Really, the name that you're working for, the history of the brand, what that brand means to our customers as well, and it's something where we're dealing with customers' cars on a daily basis, and in many cases you're responsible for their dream, if you like. So that's something that you can't help be in awe of that, if you like, and you can't help it motivate you.
Bro, thanks very much. Terrell?
Mine's a similar answer, but I do have to say, I love the team I work with, and the culture of the team is just amazing. And especially with what we're going through now, we've been so supportive of each other. For how big Bentley is, I was surprised of how much of a family feel it's got. But as Sam says, it's the brand, it's walking in and seeing them cars, and even things like in my job, if I've interviewed a supplier and then they've been chosen and I see their badge on the car, seeing that gives you satisfaction that you've had an input into that brand. And it is an amazing car. And if you get to go in one, you appreciate it even more why people buy these cars. So, yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Rich?
Yeah, well, this is my 32nd year now, so something keeps bringing me back. It's a great place to work. It's absolutely right. The prestige of the brand. What I particularly like at the moment is we're now pushing forward into sustainability. We're looking at electric vehicles, things like that. So, we're protecting the environment. We're not all about big engines and things like that. We're a sustainable luxury brand. But speaking locally of Mulliner, we are, like Cheryl said, we're a small team. We get on really well. We look out for each other. We work well together. We bounce ideas off each other, and some of the things I've seen happen in Mulliner over the years are absolutely mind-blowing. And it's whoever does come to work in Mulliner will be in for a really, really good experience.
Thanks, Richard. From my point of view, I back up the family point that a couple of you made. When I joined the business, I was amazed how friendly everyone was, and I don't think there's anywhere else I've worked where, however down the chips might seem to be and however much pressure's on, and every role has pressure wherever you work, at times you can be sure you'll find a smile and someone saying, right, come on, whatever the problem is, we'll find a way around it. Which I think that's really impressed me about this company, that people will pick each other up and attack whatever presents itself with some gusto to find a solution and innovate their way around problems. I think that's really, really admirable, and one of the reasons I enjoy coming on Teams calls a lot at the moment every day, but even more so going to site, and for myself every week, once a week at the moment. Brilliant. Thank you all. What we'll do is let's flip over to the Q&A. Andrew, I don't know if you're with us and able to curate a little bit as we move through, and then we'll sort of choose between the four of us who might be best placed to answer the questions.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, guys, for that presentation. It was really, really good and informative. Like you say, a lot of questions coming in, so we'll get straight into them. The first question came from Reese, and he said, do you have any plans to create any workplaces in Crewe?
So workplaces outside of Crewe itself, more workplaces than Crewe. At the moment, everything is based in Crewe. That's where our HQ is. We are doing a large element of remote working, obviously, at the moment, but we're currently looking at in the future how that balances itself for those of us that don't have to be on site every day. Do we have a more of a flexible way of working moving forward? Maybe just to throw it out there as far as to what experiences you do get, because I know I've been to Germany with work. I've been and visited some amazing training facilities over there to sort of compare and contrast apprenticeship programs. What about the rest of us? What other places have we experienced as part of our roles at Bentley?
I've had the I won't say luxury, but I've been very fortunate to attend motor shows. I've been to the Detroit Motor Show, Geneva Motor Show. I've been to supplier visits in Germany and America. My favourite was Japan, I have to say. Being a big Nintendo fan, I was very happy to go out to Japan and work on a customer's vehicle out there. So yeah, had some very interesting trips.
Cheryl?
Well, as part of my role, I actually went to Porsche in Stuttgart to be trained. So we picked up a process that they use, and because we've got a close relationship with them, I went there for 2 weeks to be trained on how to complete my process. But I know the supplier quality engineers, depending on what suppliers they manage, can be traveling in the UK, Europe, America, China, all over the world, really. And yeah, it can be really exciting to see different cultures and different ways of working.
Oh, thanks very much. Sam, I'm pretty sure you've been some fun places.
Yeah, Aftersales is good for this one. So I've been to retailers mainly all over Europe in some places that I never realised would be as good as they are, like Vilnius in Lithuania, which is an amazing place. I've been to some ports in California, which were quite nice. But one port around the world is the same as any other port around the world, to be honest. Just the accents are different. And I've been to the retailer in Dubai, which was a great experience as well. So quite a lot in a short period of time.
Awesome. It's probably worth pointing out as well that our engineering teams for those apprenticeships as well, they're often out drive events or testing the vehicles. So there's lots of opportunity to be involved in those testing activities as well. And apprentices or colleagues, we treat apprentices the same. So if there's a need and a reason for that apprentice to be going there, then they will go, because that person will add value to the process they're involved in. Probably worth mentioning on this question as well, in that we do look to facilitate some exchanges as well between our brand partners in Volkswagen Group. So in the past couple of years, clearly not in 2020, but in the years previously, we have sent apprentices over to Volkswagen Group and Porsche in Stuttgart as well to do placements with their apprenticeship programs and welcome them back as well. And we really would hope to be able to do that as long as the situation allows us in 2021 and onwards. Bro, let's have a look at the next one. Right,
yeah, that sounds brilliant. We've had another question here from Charlotte, who's asking about relocating. Do you have help relocating people?
I'll pick that one up from a central point of view. So we don't offer financial support if people need to relocate for the apprenticeship program, but what we do have is a community. So when we make an offer, that's when my team picks up the ball again. We'll contact individuals and ascertain if they need to relocate or want to. And then we look to our community of trainees to see if anyone's got a room share or they're looking to rent a house together, that sort of thing. And people might want to rent their own house, in which case we might just point them towards some of the local agencies. But we don't have accommodation ourselves, but we will absolutely try and facilitate connecting people together before relocating. And I'd say around 20 to 25% of our apprentices probably relocate into the Crewe area to join the schemes. Almost all of our undergraduates do. And we often find that our apprentices that do relocate end up living with an undergraduate or a graduate. So it's quite good as well for networking in that case. Sam, do you want to? What would you say about the community of trainees and maybe social events and that side of things?
Yeah, just before I come on to that, I'll just back at what you said, Tom, that there was a few guys in my year who I know very well who both rented their own accommodation up here and did room shares, and they all integrated really well and are still living up here. But yeah, the social side is really a really big thing. So obviously, if you go to university, one of the big things that's sold to you is the life, as they call it, that one word, and you do get that here as an apprentice as well. Although you're not maybe living together unless you're doing that room share, or you might be at different parts of the site, you're all bound by this fact that you're apprentices together. So a lot of social events, some are organised by the business, some are maybe not so appropriate to be organised by the business, but you do get involved in that side as well. And well, let's hope things happen in the world that allow us to do that a bit more.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Sam. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, okay. So we've had another question here from Quazim. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He wants to know what makes a good engineer. And I suppose sort of a follow-up question from me is there such a thing as a perfect applicant for Bentley?
Cheryl, I'm going to come to you with the what makes a good engineer.
No, that's why I started laughing. What makes a good engineer? Right. Well, there's two sides to it, to be honest. What made me a good engineer when I was told where I used to work was actually my people skills and getting people on board and being that technically minded to drive, issues and new products and things like that. So you've got that side of things, but also some engineers are good because they are technically minded and process driven. They know what steps and what order to do things in. They understand the mechanical background and the science behind it all, so they know why things are happening, which helps with root causes and making modifications. So I personally think a good engineer is someone who's quite rounded and has a bit of all those aspects to do the job. Yeah. I don't know if I answered that well.
I think that links really well into what we try and do with the apprenticeship programs, which is, yes, you're going to get the technical development, absolutely, either through the university program or through the BTEC, and then through, for example, with Rich's vacancy, that hands-on experience in the workshop. But then we try and put that wraparound support in to develop the behavioural side, because it is really important. You can specialise later on and be very technical, or you could go down a people management route, but certainly early on in the career, you need to be able to balance both to get the best results, I think. Andrew, what was the second half of the question?
Yeah, just a bit of a follow-up from me. A question we get asked a lot is there a perfect applicant?
I'll answer it centrally, and then maybe maybe Rich, as a recruiting manager, potentially could pick that one up. So no is probably the best answer, the honest answer, in that I don't think you'd ever, you don't picture in your head the perfect applicant. You judge everyone that's coming through on the merits. You're looking for someone who has the right base level of what we ask for when it comes to technical qualifications or background, but then it's what makes the person stand out. And I think it's really interesting to see how people who apply take what they've done, and we understand that people might not have that much experience at this stage in a career, but pull out some really key things and align them to either the role they're applying or to what they believe Bentley wants to see in behaviour, such as innovation, curiosity, those sorts of things. It's about how you pull those things out. Rich, when you're recruiting, what sort of things do you look for in that standout applicant?
Yeah, attitude for me is a big one. Is that person keen? Are they interested? Do they show a passion for what it is that they could be doing in Mulliner? Do they have hobbies outside of work? I know some young lads have turned around to me and said, "Oh yeah, I've built a steam engine at home," and that shows that they have a good understanding of engineering principles, but they're good at using tools as well. Because obviously in Mulliner, you need to have a good practical skill behind you, so you can use tools well and safely. But attitude for me is a big one. I don't want people coming in here who are just going to stand and stare at the floor. You've got to be engaged, positive, passionate, and really want to learn and grow and make the best of your apprenticeship.
Bro, thanks very much.
Okay, so the next question comes from Sienna, and she wants to know a bit more about the assessment centre. So Will it be online or in person? And I suppose, do you have any plans in the future to move back onto site? You know, the vaccine's rolling out.
So I'll answer very briefly on the assessment centre. At the moment, they will be virtual. There may be an element, Rich, I'm not sure of yours, due to the practical nature of it, where we might have something, but it is difficult at the moment to do that. Obviously, we've got a COVID secure site, and anything we did do will be absolutely in line with that. We've recently onboarded 20 apprentices, and that was all done virtually through the assessment process. So at the moment, we expect it to be virtual, but any requirement to come on site will be communicated when calling forward. As far as being back on site, as you can see, we've had people on site from about 4 weeks after we locked down back in March. I believe we were one of the first companies to get, especially manufacturing companies, to get back up and running, and really looked at by the UK government as a leader in making our site COVID secure. And we still actually pride ourselves on how COVID secure our site is. At the moment, if you sort of take, I'll let you explain what you do at the moment, but from an office area, or you might sort of look, say, a non-production area, we're on site when we need to be. So I might be on site once a week or twice a week, depending on what my job role has needs me to do. And some of the engineering areas, I believe, are sort of working 50-50 because they might need to use rigs or visit the production facility, that sort of thing. Richard, in your area, are you on site all the time at the moment?
Yeah, I was off briefly at the beginning of COVID last year when it all went wrong. I've been back on site ever since. I came in a week early with 2 other colleagues to make the place COVID secure. So lots of posters, special walkways, PPE stations, masks. Yeah, making the place safe and secure. And then we brought a separate team back and working on separate cohorts. And I will say that Bentley has been absolutely brilliant with the COVID and the safety. I've had 2 tests on site with the testing that they bring in, and they really have shown great care, I think, towards the colleagues on site to make sure everyone's safe.
Well, yeah, I echo. There's some absolute robust processes in place to protect against outbreaks or people coming on site if they're symptomatic, which I think is really good. Okay, should we move on to the next question?
Yeah, so Maria wants to know, is there any department that's currently working with 3D printing technology? And are there any apprenticeships in product design, or how can she help develop her skills in product design to get onto those apprenticeships?
I can kick it off, and I don't know if Cheryl or Sam might be able to mention about where our work sometimes touches 3D printing within the business. There's no specific product designer apprenticeships this year. It's an opportunity. There is an opportunity within the business because we do have additive manufacturing facilities, for people potentially to get involved in that. But it would be as a placement or interacting with it as part of their role. But obviously we do have that type of development on offer. It's just not an apprenticeship that we're offering this year. Sam, Cheryl, do you sort of come across additive manufacturing in your roles?
Not directly, but because I work with the innovations team to help them out, because from a quality point of view, I can give advice of what kind of suppliers and innovations are worthwhile looking at. I know they have prototypes where they do use 3D printing, and I know manufacturing are looking at that as well. So there is areas in the business that do that.
Yeah, very much the same for me. It's an area. It's a really interesting area. It's a really good question. It's an area that is becoming more and more relevant to everything that happens in the business, because it's such a good technology. Manufacturing, I know, are very involved in it. We're looking at it from after-sales perspective as well. The alternate side of after-sales, which is the commercial side, looking at parts. So it's not something I'm involved in too much, but yeah, as you move through the business, you'll certainly be aware of it.
Cool. Thanks very much.
So the next question comes from Sylvia, and she wants to know what will happen when cars become electric, and will she need to retrain?
What a very good question, Charlie. Rich, there's nods and shakes going on. I don't know.
I shook my head because yeah, we do need there'll be electrical side as well. But from a Bentley point of view, to make it a Bentley, the same as if you look at the Porsche and what they've done, it's all about the exterior and the interior, and that's still quite mechanically heavy. So you might have to retrain, as in maybe adapt your mindset a little bit because things are changing. But in terms of being a mechanical engineer, I still think it's a very valid qualification to have, because like I say, to make when you do an electric car, the way it's designed and everything, they can go at whatever the speed is in like 2 seconds. It's ridiculous. And so that's not going to be the defining factor for a Bentley to stand out. It's going to have to be the interior and the exterior of the car and the luxury side of it. And that still will be mainly mechanical, I would say.
Well, I think from a business point of view, and what if you look at our apprenticeship diversity as well, there's mechanical, there's electrical, there's systems, there's a range of opportunities still every year. We have to make sure we've got a really nice balance in the business of those skills, and of course we're looking wider as a business about how we make sure we've got those skills to meet the challenges that electrification brings. But I think it's a really strong message for obviously where retraining is needed as well, though we will support that, but it won't all be electrical engineers.
Tom, can I just jump in there just really quickly?
Yeah, of course, Sam.
Just because the electrification side is something that's really important for us in Aftersales. Our cars are becoming hybrid. We've got one hybrid out there already. You'll have seen our strategy announcement if you're on the news of the Beyond 100. So every car will have an electrified variant by the middle of this decade, and we'll have our first fully electric car, and that's huge for Aftersales. So you'll be really involved in the journey towards that. I've been retrained towards high voltage, so I can shut down and start up high voltage systems. So if you do need to be retrained, and as Cheryl says, it's not necessarily the case, but if you do, then it's all there as part of Bentley. So it's not expected that you're going to be able to walk up and deal with 400 volt systems. That's certainly not the case. It will all be done in the correct way.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, brilliant. So the next question is from Cheryl, and she wants to know, what is the culture like at Bentley?
It's a good question. Culture is always a hard one to describe in a word. I mean, if you to ask me to describe it in one word, I'd say family again. It's a company it's big enough that you get to experience and understand and see so many amazing things on one site in crew, and even working remotely. I don't feel that I've really lost that sense of team and team working, but it's also small enough that you sort of know everyone to some extent. I think that creates an amazing culture within the business, in that you really do feel like you can ask anyone a question. The board members are really visible, and they will happily stop and give you the time of day when they're walking around site. And I think that's a really, really good thing about the business, in that you feel that you can speak to anyone about anything. It's a real positive for me. What about the others? How would you describe our culture?
That's like you say, it's like I said before, I've been here a long time. I've always been encouraged. I've always been, looked after by. I've become good friends with people that I've worked with all these years. It is a good place to work. People are looked after, encouraged. It's a hard one, I think, to sort of put in a word.
Maybe that says more than anything, that it's really hard to describe how good a place to work it is.
Yeah, brilliant. So Christian is asking, he studied in Spain, and he wants to know, would you consider previous experience or studies that are done outside of the UK?
I'll answer this one from a technical point of view. The main criteria we look for are the entry requirements, and if they have an equivalence in a foreign qualification, absolutely fine. Not a problem at all. The main thing we look for is right to work in the UK as well, and on application, the recruitment team will check that. So yes, the equivalence of a qualification is fine, and that goes for BTECs in place of A levels, or level 2s in place of GCSEs. It just has to be the right level, as well as for foreign qualifications. But it's the right to work in the UK that's key as well on application.
Okay, so the next question comes from Poppy, and she wants to know about progression opportunities after you finish your apprenticeship.
I'd start that one off, and then if any others want to jump in on that one as well afterwards. We're really keen that the apprenticeships at Bentley give everyone a really good grounding to move into a permanent role in the business, be as a technician or an engineer, and carve themselves out that initial career and get some really good experience under their belt. I think what we try and do is engage the apprenticeship programs with the same types of behavioural training, with the same types of views on leadership that we give to our managers as well. So we make sure that that's aligned so they can see and they get to interact with that management and with the leaders in the business, so they know the sorts of things that are required of them as they move forward. I think that's really important to say first. I think if you look across some of our previous apprentices from 4 or 5 years ago, there are a number now moved into team leader roles, moved into even engineer roles from technician apprenticeships, or even from our production apprenticeships, which I think is really good. So the opportunities are there. I think the one thing I would say, and I think I said this yesterday on the production webinar, which is it's about grabbing the opportunities. If you want to come into the business and be on the production line or as an engineer, you could do that, but you won't develop and you won't progress unless you absolutely grab the opportunities that are given to you. And there are lots of opportunities available in the business. I think that's a given. They are out there. So yes, there is the chance to become a manager. It takes time, like anything, and it takes the opportunities to be taken with both hands.
Okay, so the next question comes from George, and he's asking, do you have a breakdown of the modules that are available on an apprenticeship, and also what choice is there when he's picking his modules?
No, off the top of my head, I don't, unfortunately. But what we would do is sit down, and we always sit down with the manager of that particular apprentice. And where there is flexibility within a particular degree, the manager will look at what they think is the absolute best for that particular role. And then when the apprentice starts, there'll be a discussion with the apprentice on what fits exactly. So where there is some flexibility, I think it's really important we find a balance between what the business needs, but also what the individual's interested in. And there has to be some sort of meeting in the middle as far as those modules go. We haven't yet quite selected our provider for the September start, because we want to make sure it's absolutely the right one when it comes to university. So for that reason, at the moment, I couldn't sort of give you the module breakdown. The best place to go and look at the moment will be, for example, the Institute for Apprenticeships website, where you've got the electrical systems engineer degree apprenticeship. I think it's electrical and electronic technical support degree apprenticeship, and that will show you the types of things that are required from that apprenticeship to learn as you go through.
Okay, so Leroy is asking about the training that you'll receive as an apprentice. So what is the training like?
Sam, can I come to you just to give us an idea of the sort of things you did on your way through your degree?
There's two sides to this, of course. There's the non-workplace based, and there's the workplace based. So the workplace based training is there are Bentley training courses, but it's training just on the job every single day. And one of the best things I've had, and probably the second answer for what's the best thing in the company, is the amount of support that I've got in Aftersales for doing that. So you'll naturally train through that, and you've got a huge amount of support. I know I have in Aftersales, but I'm sure the other guys will. I'm sure Richard provides a lot of support, and I'm sure the quality do as well in engineering. The training side outside of that is I started off doing, and Tom will correct me if this has changed in the 4 years since I started. I started off by doing some hands-on engineering courses called Performing Engineering Operations, which were electrically based. So that was fairly simple stuff, but it was, again, stuff I'd not done before. So that was a really good foundation into the world of electrical stuff. And then also through the training through the degree, this kind of links to the previous question as well, is that about modules, is there's nothing really too surprising there. It's all things that you could probably guess would be on an electrical degree, but it's stuff that very much helps the workplace, and you will be supported through doing both sides of that. So yes, there's two elements of it, but you won't be prevented from doing your training because you've got a job, and vice versa. So there's a huge amount of training that you go through, but you're supported all the way through it on both sides of it, both in the workplace and out of it.
What my team is responsible for doing before the apprentice arrives, as well as making sure that that's aligned. So any extra training that's required, it's clarified before that we can sort of put that in place. In Aftersales, you might need something specific, that quality needs something different, and in Muller, obviously, for the technical apprenticeship, there's something slightly different as well. There will be some engineering operations. Sam, you mentioned it has changed a little bit since you started, but there will be some low-level engineering operations at the start of the degree, and then it will go to a more traditional full degree route. So potentially 1 day a week out of the company at university, For the technical apprenticeship in Mulliner, it's more likely to be 2 or 3 days early on in the programme, and then that moves through to be 1 day a week, potentially doing the MVQ in the final 2 years, and much more time on site.
I think the other thing that we just missed there, Tom, is that there's the training advisors as well.
Yep.
So throughout doing the training, you've got a person who's assigned to you and you meet on a periodic basis who will go through it, so you can't lose track of it ever.
Okay, brilliant. So Kai is asking, how competitive are apprenticeships at Bentley? And do you have any tips to help him stand out? Okay,
that's a good question. I'll answer it from a central point of view. Maybe come to one of our managers for a view on what you look for, and then Sam, maybe what you did as you went through the process, see if you can think back. They are competitive, naturally. Of course, we have lots of applicants. From my point of view, it's about finding what your USP is. What is your unique selling point, and try and make that stand out. Make the assumption that everyone applying for one of these roles has got what you would think is the base level of qualification, so the A levels or the GCSEs, and then think about what makes you different. And if you don't feel like you have anything obvious, go and have a really good think about what you've done in the past couple of years. One of the best examples of a skill that someone ever pulled out for me was when they worked in Marks and Spencer's as part-time on a Saturday. But in an interview, they pulled out this amazing example of problem solving from something to do with an elderly lady in a sausage roll. So it is absolutely possible to find examples anywhere. You've just got to sort of dig and really think about what you're good at. Go and learn something in your own time. Get a weekend job. Those sort of things really show that you've got an ambition to better yourself and broaden your experience from my point of view. Cheryl or Rich, what would you say you look for when you're looking at CVs?
It's similar to what I remember. A guy, or in fact, he did get the job, and he's the only one I actually remember. He built his own drones, so it doesn't have to be as technical as that, but it's what you do outside of school and college. And like you say, if you've got a part-time job, if you've got a hobby, and especially if you show some passion about it, that really makes you stand out. That you're different, and you're going to be eager to learn and be keen. So it's what you're passionate about, I think, needs to come across.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, absolutely. Someone sitting there, I like to sit on my bed and watch telly all day is not going to come across well. You've got to really push, and if you've got something, if you're racing banger cars at weekend and you're in the engine, working on engines, or you're working with wood or anything like that. I like to fix iPhones, so if you like doing that, that shows us a degree of technical skill and understanding and an interest in it. So, yeah, whatever your skills are, try and sell them as best you can.
Thanks, Rich. And Sam, what did you do to make yourself stand out?
Well, exactly that, really. I hope it is the thing exactly that you said, Tom. That identifying what your skills are and where you've got the experiences, and that doesn't. I mean, I hadn't worked on cars really before I came. I was very interested in them. It was my passion, but I hadn't really worked on them. I'd not been in a garage. And the interview and assessment centre will look at how you are as a person. Problem solving is a big one that you pointed out there, Tom. How you work with others, difficult times that you've been through and overcome, and those experiences can come through absolutely anything. And if it's technically based, then that's great. And if it's not, then you've still got a point to sell there. I think I'd also say a big thing for me, and I found this when I've been at the company as well, is absolutely when you go through your CV and cover letter, make them look good. Proofread them, get someone else to proofread them, look at formatting, things like bullet points being misaligned and things like that. We're working at a quality company here, and that happens every single time I do a presentation. It will be looked at for formatting and capitals in the wrong place and full stops. It sounds silly, but it's those little things that make you stand out, and attention to detail. If you put that into your CV, then for a recruiting manager, you're more likely to bring that into the business where you're dealing with £200,000 cars. So that's a really important thing as well.
I think that's a really good point. And write a cover letter. If I have to emphasize something, please write a cover letter. I see even more important this year if you're looking to apply for these roles, because we expect to see the department you're interested in on that cover letter as well, because of the way the vacancies are set up. So please ensure you write a cover letter talking about which of the departments you're interested in. I'm wary of time. Andrew, can I answer the question that says, do you have to open doors with your feet at Bentley due to COVID? Just because I've never had a question like it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you do. You don't have to. But obviously, yeah, I think a lot of businesses now have something called step and pulls, which is you can sort of put your foot on and yank a door open so you don't have to touch the door handle. So yes, Katie, we do have the ability to do that.
So we've had quite a few questions. I know we are sort of coming to the end. Just want to get in that we had quite a few questions about qualifications that are needed. So can you tell us a bit more about specific qualifications that are needed, or is there anywhere perhaps to view online about qualifications?
So in all the vacancies themselves now, and I'll point out about the Mulliner one in a second because that has to be refreshed on the website. In all the vacancies, it should say what you need. And in general, for engineering degree apprenticeships, we're looking at A-levels or BTEC diploma equivalent at C or above, and looking for 3 of those, and ideally with engineering and or maths as part of those. We found that maths is really important for those apprentices that come in. Where we have people struggle, it's because they maybe don't have the strong maths background. That's what we found with experience. And for the Mulliner apprenticeship, we're looking at GCSEs. We look for at least 5, and we really look for a level 4 at English and maths, and ideally as well an engineering or science in that group as well at C or above, or sorry, 4 or above as we are now. But they will be in the vacancies themselves what we're looking for. We will look at obviously equivalents, and we will take everything into consideration this year as well, given that people are getting results in different ways, of course.
Okay, thanks a lot. Do you have any other closing comments to make?
From my point of view, don't forget we've not had an engineering representative, so I'm just keen to point out that the engineering departments are also looking for 3-degree engineers. I might just leave the last word to each of our guests about their department. So Sam, you first.
Yep. So my department, I've had incredible opportunities. It's a really, really fast-paced, dynamic environment. If you like doing something completely different every day, you can wake up in the morning and haven't got a clue what's going to happen in the day, but it's all controlled. It's all things that you'll really enjoy doing, technically based, but also dealing with every part of the car across every part of the world. So you'll have some great opportunities. You'll be supported all the way along the way, but it's a two-way street, of course. If you want to take those opportunities, that's down to you, and that's where you'll get the real benefit from it.
Thanks, Carol, for quality.
In the department I work in, all I can say is if you want to be a well-rounded engineer with communication, project management, and experience on shop floors, as well as in the office, it's a perfect department for that. And also, from my point of view, I've worked with Lamborghini, Volkswagen, and Porsche, and it's a real eye-opener. And what I love about supplier quality and the quality role is because you get so involved in the projects all the way through in various different tasks. You end up being the knowledge holders and the experts that people come to seek advice. And so if you want to do a bit of traveling and do a varied job, I'd say go for supplier quality and quality roles.
Thanks, Cheryl. And Rich, for Mulliner.
If you want to come and work somewhere that is really varied, very practical, very hands-on, you have to be really good at problem solving, thinking on your feet, firefighting at times. Again, the work can be varied. Every day you can come in and do something completely different, working on some high-profile projects for high-profile people sometimes, and Mulliner is a really great place to come.
Brilliant. Sorry, I feel like I was almost pitting the departments against each other. I didn't mean it to come across that way. Thank you. Thanks to our team, and thanks to Career Map, Andrew, for hosting.
So thanks again to Bentley and everyone that joined us today. To let you know, the session has been recorded and it will be uploaded to careermap.co.uk soon, so you can refer back to the presentation at any time. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and we hope to see you again very soon. So stay safe, everyone, and thanks a lot for joining.